Most people think life gets better by adding more success, more stuff, more attention. But the truth is far more radical. A powerful life begins not by adding, but by subtracting. The Stoics knew this. They weren't obsessed with goals, fame, or accumulation. They focused on clarity, on simplicity, on removing everything that clouded the soul, corrupted the mind, and weakened the will. Independence is a form of death, the death of personal freedom. You may fear that if you stop seeking approval, people will withdraw. That's not always wrong. But here's the deeper truth. The people who only stay because you validate their expectations are not companions. They are audience members. And your life is not a performance. When you begin to let go of the need for constant approval, a beautiful thing happens. Your actions become cleaner. Your motives become purer. Dignity, direction. You don't eliminate self-doubt by arguing with it. You eliminate it by living in opposition to it. When the voice says, "You're not smart enough," read, study, grow. When it says, "You're not worthy," act with integrity and prove it wrong. When it says, "You'll never change," change something today, no matter how small. Build new evidence. You don't need to become fearless. You need to become more loyal to your potential than your insecurity. The Stoic doesn't look for permission to begin. He looks inside. He aligns with virtue, with reason, courage, justice, temperance. And from that alignment, he acts. He writes the book. He starts the journey. He forgives himself. He steps into the fire. And he does it again tomorrow. Remember, confidence is not built through comfort. It is built through confrontation, facing the fear, hearing the doubt, and walking forward anyway. You are not the sum of your fears. You are not the echo of someone else's disbelief. You are the result of what you choose to do now, in this moment, in spite of all of it. So what would happen if you stopped waiting to be ready? What would your life look like if you acted from your future self, not your wounded self? What would change if you made decisions based on vision, not insecurity? Everything. You don't need more validation. You don't need another sign. You don't need anyone else to say, "You've got this." You need to move with the doubt, through the fear, toward the man or woman you were always capable of becoming. Because the greatest tragedy is not in being doubted by others. It's in living your whole life doubting yourself. Let today be the last day you listen to that voice. Let today be the first day you speak with clarity, walk with purpose, act with courage. Let today be the day you silence self-doubt, not with words, but with action. You are already enough. And if you don't believe it yet, act like someone who does. The belief will follow. You don't need to burn everything down. You don't need to make noise. You don't need to announce your transformation to the world. You just need to let go. Quietly, deliberately, relentlessly. The Stoic path isn't paved with grand gestures. It's made of subtle, consistent choices. To release what no longer serves you. To choose clarity over comfort. Peace over performance. Discipline over distraction. The more you eliminate, the more of yourself you'll reclaim. Your time, your energy, your mind, your presence, your power. So take inventory, not of what you still want to achieve, but of what you're finally ready to leave behind. The weight that has disguised itself as normal. The habits that pretend to protect you, the people, the fears, the patterns that whisper. Stay small. Let them go, without explanation, without apology, without a scene. Because this is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming who you were before the world covered you in noise. Strip it all away, until only truth remains, until only virtue stands, until you walk through the world lighter, sharper, freer, not because you added more, but because you had the courage to let go, one cut at a time, one silent decision at a time. one day closer to who you're truly meant to be. If this video stirred something in you, a memory, a weight, a quiet truth you've been avoiding, don't just watch and scroll. Act. Start small. Choose one thing from this list. Let it go. Quietly, without fanfare. Then choose another, and another, until what remains is no longer noise, but clarity. Until what remains is you, focused, free, fully present. If you're ready to start removing what no longer serves your mind, your peace, and your potential, subscribe to the channel now. Join thousands of others walking the Stoic path, not louder, but deeper. Like the video, if you're ready to stop accumulating and start eliminating, share this message with someone carrying more than they should. And in the comments below, tell me, what's the one thing you're quietly letting go of, starting today? Because freedom doesn't come from more, it comes from less, and less begins now. You begin doing things not to be seen, but because they are right. You speak not to be admired, but to bring clarity. You listen not to fit in, but to understand. And perhaps most important of all, you begin to experience silence as safety, not punishment. You begin to understand that being unseen is not the same as being unworthy, that solitude is not the enemy of love, that being unknown by many is not failure, it is freedom. The world will always try to buy your identity with the currency of approval. It will praise you when you conform, and punish you when you rebel. But the Stoic does not live by praise or punishment. He lives by principle. He walks the narrow path of virtue, even when it is unseen, even when it is unpopular, even when it is misunderstood. Let this be your quiet rebellion, to live so aligned with who you are that you no longer need others to approve of it, to be kind without needing applause, to be honest without needing agreement, to be whole even when no one notices. This doesn't require an announcement. You don't need to post about it. You don't need to tell others you've changed. Just begin the slow, steady, sacred process of detachment. Each day, choose your truth over their approval. Each day, return to your internal compass. Each day, practice the rarest courage in the modern world, to live from the inside out, because the one who no longer needs approval is finally free. Part 2. Toxic relationships that no longer serve your growth. The Stoic art of letting go without noise. There is a kind of weight we carry that does not come from work, from effort, or even from loss. It comes from people, from certain voices we have allowed too close to our soul, from certain bonds that were once nurturing, but have since decayed into quiet poison. These relationships do not erupt in drama. They wither in silence. They no longer serve your growth, your peace, your values, and yet you keep them, out of guilt, out of memory, out of fear. But the Stoic understands. Not all relationships are meant to be carried forward. Some are chapters, not lifelines. Some are mirrors of your old self, a self you are no longer obligated to protect. Seneca, in his letters, wrote frequently about the power of association. He warned that the soul is like wax. It retains the impression of those it spends time with. If we keep company with the corrupt, the anxious, the cruel, the insincere, we will slowly, and often unconsciously, absorb their imprint. We begin to think like them, speak like them, see the world through their lens of fear and mediocrity. And so, part of becoming who you are, meant to be, involves this painful but noble act, letting go of relationships that no longer align with your path. This does not require bitterness. It does not demand an explosion. The most powerful separations are often the quietest. A shift in energy, a gentle stepping back, a commitment to your own integrity that does not require anyone else's permission. But why is this so difficult? Because we have been trained to believe that loyalty is synonymous with self-betrayal, that to love someone means to carry their dysfunction indefinitely, that we must always explain, defend, justify, even when our souls are suffocating. But the Stoic way is not one of people-pleasing. It is one of self-governance. And if a relationship consistently pulls you away from virtue, from peace, from reason, it is not love, it is bondage. And bondage, no matter how familiar, must be severed if you are to walk freely. This doesn't mean you cut off everyone who disagrees with you. Diversity of thought is essential for growth. But there is a difference between difference and decay. One sharpens you, the other eats away at your will, your clarity, your peace. Start by asking yourself, does this person support the best in me or tolerate the worst? Do I leave our conversations clearer or more confused? Do I feel seen, or do I constantly feel the need to prove myself? Am I walking on eggshells, censoring who I am, afraid of their reaction? These are not questions of ego. They are questions of self-respect. Epictetus reminded his students that you become what you pay attention to. So ask yourself, what if the life you want isn't out there in the future? What if it's buried beneath everything you should have let go of long ago? In this video, you won't find shortcuts or empty motivation. You'll find 10 things, 10 weights, 10 invisible poisons that are quietly robbing you of your power. And the most stoic, most disciplined, most transformative thing you can do is eliminate them, not with drama, not with noise, but in silence, with precision, with intention. And you pay attention, more than anything, to the people in your daily orbit. So if someone consistently disrespects your boundaries, dismisses your values, or diminishes your growth, and they show no effort to change, it is not your duty to endure them. It is your duty to walk away, quietly, without drama, without needing to be right, with full awareness that this is not cruelty, this is clarity. There's a kind of grief that comes with this. Even when the decision is right, you will miss who they once were. You will miss who you were with them. But grief is not a signal that you've made the wrong choice. It's the natural response to releasing a part of your identity that was once intertwined with someone else. Let the grief come, but don't let it turn into guilt. Guilt is the chain that will pull you back into the cycle. Guilt is what manipulative people count on to keep you in places you no longer belong. Instead, honor what the relationship gave you, even if it was only a lesson. Then bow out, not in hate, but in strength, not in anger, but in stillness, because your peace is not up for negotiation. You do not owe anyone eternal access to your life, simply because they've known you a long time. Growth changes the guest list. That's not arrogance, that's reality. The Stoics didn't cling. They didn't idealize permanence. They understood that life is in motion, and that part of living wisely is knowing when to release what no longer belongs. So, when you recognize that a relationship is toxic, and I mean truly toxic, not simply inconvenient, you have a choice to make. Stay and betray your soul, or leave and honor your becoming. You will feel fear, but fear is not a sign to stay. It is the resistance you must move through to reclaim your life. You may not be able to end everything today, but you can begin. You can create space. You can reclaim your mornings, your energy, your mind. And in that space, something remarkable happens. You begin to hear your own voice again. You begin to feel lighter, stronger, more whole. Do it quietly. No need to post about it. No need to burn bridges. Just begin withdrawing your presence from what no longer serves your highest self. Because the moment you stop watering dead plants, you start growing a new garden. And in that garden, rooted in stoic clarity, discipline, and inner strength, only what aligns with your deepest values will thrive. Part 3. The illusion of busyness. doing more versus becoming more. In a world addicted to speed, silence feels like failure. In a culture that glorifies productivity, stillness looks like laziness, and so we run. We fill our calendars. We chase task after task, mistaking motion for meaning, activity for advancement, noise for necessity. But the Stoics would ask, to what end? Seneca warned us, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. We don't lack time, we lack clarity. We lack the courage to say no. We lack the discernment to differentiate what is urgent from what is essential. We live in an age where busyness has become a badge of honor. We boast about being overwhelmed. We treat burnout like a rite of passage. We confuse being in demand with being indispensable. And yet, under the surface of all this motion, many feel empty, disconnected, hollow. Because here's the truth. The Stoics knew all too well. Doing more does not mean you are becoming more. You can spend your entire day ticking off tasks and still be no closer to your purpose. You can be efficient and still be lost. You can be admired and still be misaligned. The illusion of busyness is seductive. It gives the feeling of progress without the discomfort of transformation. It's easier to answer 100 emails than to confront one deep fear. It's easier to attend 10 meetings than to sit alone with your conscience. It's easier to drown in what's next than to pause and ask, what truly matters? Marcus Aurelius, the ruler of the Roman Empire, had more responsibility than anyone alive today. Yet he still found time each morning to sit in silence and write to himself, to reflect, to realign, to remember. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. The modern mind resists this. It's too painful to slow down, to sit with the question, am I busy, or just avoiding what matters? The Stoic answer is not to do nothing. It is to do what counts. To shift from frantic to focused, from scattered to still, from performing to becoming. This shift requires practice. It requires ruthless self-inquiry, like a warrior cleaning his blade before battle. Let's begin. Part 1. The need for constant approval, reclaiming your self-worth from the world's eyes. One of the deepest chains that binds modern humanity is the silent, often invisible need for approval. Not truth, not inner peace, not alignment with personal virtue, but approval from strangers, peers, family, even algorithms. And what's worse is that many people don't even know they're enslaved to it. They confuse approval with connection. Try asking yourself each morning, what is one thing I could eliminate today that adds no real value? What is one thing I've been avoiding that actually matters deeply? If I only had 3 hours to live, what would I still want to do today? These questions cut through the noise. They pierce the illusion. They bring you back to what the Stoics called arete, virtue, excellence, living fully aligned with your higher self. Productivity is not evil. It's only dangerous when it becomes your identity. When you forget that you are not what you do, you are how you do it. A man who washes dishes with attention and presence is more stoic than a man who leads a company in chaos. Begin quietly eliminating this addiction to doing for doing's sake. You don't need to announce a digital detox. You don't need to abandon all ambition. You just need to examine your motion. Is it purposeful or performative? Is it rooted in clarity or in fear? Is it leading you toward your ideal or keeping you too distracted to remember what that ideal even is? There's a concept in Stoicism called euthymia, the inner confidence that you are on the right path. You can't find that feeling in overbooked schedules or constant notifications. It lives in stillness. It is born in quiet self-honesty. The Stoics practiced simplicity, not as an aesthetic, but as a principle of focus. Epictetus taught, that to become wise, you must cut away all that is unnecessary, and nothing is more unnecessary than busyness without direction. Let go of the noise. Let go of the compulsion to respond immediately. Let go of the pride in being overwhelmed. Choose, instead, to be effective rather than reactive, to be deep rather than fast, to be present rather than scattered. Start small. One task a day that you do not do. One moment a day when you choose silence instead of scrolling. One commitment you say no to, not out of laziness, but out of clarity. This is how you begin to reclaim your time, and more importantly, your mind. Because every minute spent on what doesn't matter is a minute stolen from what does. And every day spent in frantic motion is a day lost to unconscious living. So move, but move with purpose. Act, but act from stillness. Work, but let your work serve your soul, not your image. The Stoic path is not the busiest path, but it is the most direct. And in a world that's always rushing, your stillness will be your revolution. Tiep Van 4, ChatGPT said. Part 4, The Comparison Trap. Freedom from the weight of someone else's life. Every day, you are offered 1,000 lives to envy, 1,000 illusions of perfection, filtered and curated to seduce your mind. You scroll through faces, lifestyles, accomplishments, and immediately, subtly, the questions begin to whisper inside you. Why am I not there yet? Why does their life look easier? Am I falling behind? And beneath it all, am I enough? This is the comparison trap. It does not scream. It murmurs. It poisons slowly. And it is one of the most corrosive forces to inner peace. The Stoics saw this danger with stark clarity. Epictetus warned that we must never concern ourselves with what is beyond our control. And yet, the life of another, their success, their timing, their body, their journey is exactly that, out of our control, entirely. So to fixate on it is not only unwise, it is self-inflicted suffering. Comparison is one of the subtlest forms of slavery. You hand over your contentment to a stranger. You let someone else's story dictate how you feel about your own. You judge your internal world by external images, images that are often manufactured, manipulated, and hollow. Marcus Aurelius said, "Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions." If that's true, and it is, then every act of comparison is a step away from sanity. It is a quiet madness, convincing you that your life must look like another's to have value. But here's the paradox. You cannot envy someone and walk your path at the same time. Every moment spent comparing is a moment lost in becoming. You cannot build while staring at someone else's tower. Let's go deeper. Why do we compare? Because we are searching for proof. Proof that we are okay, that we are worthy, that we are progressing. But comparison is the wrong tool. It offers only distortion. It narrows your vision. It creates urgency where there should be presence. They confuse validation with love. They confuse applause with worth. But the Stoic, the one who studies and lives by inner mastery, knows better. The need for approval is a disease of the ego. It comes from the mistaken belief that your value lies outside of yourself, in the hands of others, in their words, their smiles, their recognition. This is a subtle but dangerous illusion, because as long as your sense of self is dependent on something you cannot control, you are not free, and it trades truth for aesthetics. One of the most damaging myths we inherit is that life is a race, and everyone else is ahead. But the Stoic knows there is no race. There is only alignment. There is only you, your path, and your principles. Seneca said it best. It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, It is because we do not dare that they are difficult. Dare what? Dare to be uniquely you, to stay focused on your inner work, even when the world shouts for conformity. You must understand, every life comes with invisible costs. Every perfect person you admire carries burdens you cannot see. You are not seeing the full picture, only the highlight reel. And yet, you shame yourself for not having what they display. This is not rational. This is not stoic. So how do we escape the trap? First, recognize it. Awareness dissolves illusion. When you feel comparison rising, stop. Don't resist it with shame. Observe it. I am comparing. I'm stepping out of my lane. Then ask, is this helping me become who I want to be? The answer, always, is no. Second, return to your values. The Stoic doesn't aim to be impressive. He aims to be virtuous. Let your metric for success be rooted in courage, integrity, wisdom, not likes, titles, or applause. Let your progress be measured not by where others are, but by where you've been and where you're going with intention. Third, practice gratitude. The mind cannot be poisoned by envy and nourished by gratitude at the same time. Gratitude restores sight. It grounds you in your own blessings, your own lessons, your own sacred timing. And finally, embrace solitude. In silence, comparison loses its grip. When you're alone with yourself, no scrolling, no noise, you begin to feel your own heartbeat again. You remember that your life is not lacking. It is unfolding perfectly, precisely for you. Let go of the need to keep up. There is nothing to catch. You are not late. You are not behind. You are on a journey that cannot be compared because it has never been lived before. Not like this. Not by you. Quietly eliminate the urge to look left or right. Walk forward. Eyes open. Heart steady. And if you must compare yourself to yesterday's you. Did you act with more patience? Did you respond with more wisdom? Did you walk in truth, even when it was hard? That is the only comparison that serves your soul. Everything else is a trap. Let it go. Because when you stop trying to live someone else's life, you finally begin to live your own. Part 5. Attachment to the past. Letting go of the pain that no longer serves you. There is a particular weight that doesn't show up in photographs or checklists, a heaviness that hides behind smiles and daily routines. It is the weight of the past, unresolved, unspoken, and unhealed. We carry it in our posture, in our breath, in our silence, and often we don't even realize it's there. Old regrets, wounds that were never fully named, failures we revisit like rituals, words we wish we had said or never said at all, memories that keep echoing long after the moment has passed. The past can be a teacher, but if we cling to it too tightly, it becomes a jailer. The Stoics were not strangers to pain. They lived through exile, betrayal, loss, and death. But they understood something most of us overlook. You cannot live well if you are chained to what has already ended. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." And what is clinging to the past, if not the belief that we know how the story should have gone? We replay the moment because we believe we could have changed it. We hold the grudge because we think justice will finally come. We nurture the wound because we've mistaken pain for identity. But the Stoic releases what he cannot control, not because it doesn't matter, but because it already happened, and what has happened cannot be undone. It can only be transformed. And that transformation begins with letting go. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean denying. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't matter. Letting go means you stop giving it power. You stop letting it define you. You stop letting it hijack your present, one silent thought at a time. You cannot rewrite the past, but you can rewrite your relationship to it. And it begins with honesty. Epictetus taught that we should concern ourselves only with what lies within our control, our thoughts, our actions, our judgments. What others think of us, that belongs to them, not to us. If you base your happiness on the perception of others, then you have handed them the keys to your emotional life. Consider how much time, energy, and mental space is spent worrying about what others might think. The clothes you wear, the words you say, the pauses you take, the opinions you hold back. Ask yourself, what am I still holding on to? What am I punishing myself for over and over again? What moment or mistake am I letting shape the way I see myself today? Then go deeper. Did that person truly define my worth? Was that failure truly fatal? Is my guilt helping me grow, or is it just keeping me stuck? The Stoics invite you to see your life as a series of moments, not as chains. Each moment can be faced, learned from, and released. But not if you keep reopening the wound. Not if you let the past dictate how you treat the present. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Forget everything else. Keep hold of this alone. Remember that you are a man, and your time is short. Use it accordingly." That means you cannot afford to live yesterday on repeat. Your energy is finite. Your attention is sacred. And your time is slipping through your fingers every single day. Why give it to something that cannot give anything back? Let go of the betrayal. Let go of the injustice. Let go of the shame. Not because they didn't hurt, but because you've suffered long enough. Not because they don't matter, but because your peace matters more. This is not weakness. This is not passivity. This is power. Quiet, grounded power. The kind of power that stops trying to control what cannot be changed and starts investing in what still can. When you let go of the past, you do not lose part of yourself. You reclaim it. You reclaim the part that was buried under guilt. You reclaim the voice that was silenced by regret. You reclaim the future that was waiting for you to stop looking back. You do not need to tell anyone. You do not need a ceremony. You simply need a moment, a quiet decision to stop revisiting the graveyard of what could have been, to walk forward, not unscarred, but unburdened. There is no virtue in dwelling, no strength in shame, no wisdom in self-condemnation. There is only now, and the Stoic chooses now. So today, not tomorrow, not someday, but today, release the version of yourself that only knows how to carry pain. Let the past stay where it belongs, behind you, and walk forward with the grace, the dignity, and the clarity of someone who has nothing to prove, because they have already survived what once tried to destroy them. The past happened, but you're still here. That means you won. Now live like it. Part 6. Unnecessary words. Choosing silence over noise. There's a power most people never tap into, not because it's hidden, but because it's uncomfortable. It is not the power to speak, to explain, to argue, to persuade. It is the power to stay silent, to listen, to observe, to remain still while the world spills itself out in noise. We live in a time where everyone is talking, posting, commenting, reacting. And yet, with all this expression, how much of it is meaningful? How much of it serves the soul? How much of it brings peace, clarity, or virtue? Very little. The Stoics understood that unnecessary words weaken the mind. Marcus Aurelius said, "The more we say, the less we remember to do." Seneca wrote, "Speech is only silver when it's time to be silent." Epictetus reminded his students that nature gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, a subtle instruction to listen more than we speak. Yet today, silence is often misread as weakness. If you don't reply, they say you're afraid. If you don't comment, they say you don't care. If you don't explain, they demand you justify. But the Stoic knows that silence is not absence. It is intention. It is restraint. It is the art of guarding your peace in a world that constantly tries to steal it. Why do we speak so much? Why do we fill the air with so many empty phrases, clarifications, apologies, over-explanations? Because we're afraid. We're afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of being forgotten, afraid of being seen and then rejected. So we talk, and in that talking, we dilute our truth, we betray our presence, we surrender the most sacred thing we have, our attention. But what if you began to eliminate unnecessary words from your life? What if you stopped replying to every provocation? What if you didn't explain your decisions to people who never respected them in the first place? What if you didn't justify your growth, your silence, your boundaries? What if you just acted? Imagine this. Someone offends you. In the past, you would react, you would defend, you would try to correct their perspective. But now, you pause. This is not prudence. It's fear dressed up as strategy, and it prevents you from ever truly becoming yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but we care more about their opinion than our own." This is the tragic irony of our time. We know our intentions, we live with our soul, but we let outsiders, who see only fragments of us, define our identity. You observe the emotion rising, and you let it pass. You say nothing. You simply walk away with dignity intact. That is not weakness, that is mastery. Words, when used carelessly, become noise, but words, when chosen with care, become weapons of clarity and compassion. They become clean, precise, powerful. The Stoic seeks this precision, not verbosity, not performance, but truth, spoken with restraint. When Marcus Aurelius was faced with betrayal and political corruption, he did not scream. He did not publicly shame. He wrote. He reflected. He chose his actions carefully. He knew that the calmest voice is often the one that is truly in command. So how do you begin practicing this Stoic silence? Start small. Before speaking, pause. Ask, is this necessary? Is this true? Is this helpful? Is this kind? If not, let it go. Before replying to a message or comment, breathe. Wait 5 seconds. Then decide if it needs your energy. If someone is looking for a fight, give them space, not fuel. If someone demands you explain a personal choice, smile and let your actions speak louder than their need for validation. If someone gossips, listen, but do not add. Let your silence be your disapproval. With time, your words will become rare, but when they arrive, they will carry weight. People will listen, not because you speak often, but because you speak only when it matters. This is how you gain authority without raising your voice. This is how you reclaim time without confrontation. This is how you protect your peace without burning bridges. It is not about being cold. It is about being intentional. There is a sacred strength in choosing not to respond, in walking away without bitterness, in letting your stillness be the loudest thing in the room. Because in silence, the mind sharpens, the heart steadies, the path becomes clear. And in a noisy world full of shouting, posting, defending, performing, the man who can sit in silence, who can listen without needing to be right, who can walk away without needing to be understood, he is the most powerful man in the room. So let the world talk. You master your silence. Part 7. The obsession with fairness, releasing the illusion that life owes you anything. One of the most subtle but persistent forms of suffering comes from a single belief. This shouldn't be happening to me. It's not fair. I deserve better. This belief hides behind our frustrations, our disappointments, our sense of injustice. It sounds righteous, it feels morally correct, but in truth, it is a trap, a poison disguised as principle. and it robs us of the very peace we claim to be seeking. The Stoics knew this well. Life, they taught, is not obligated to fit our expectations. The world does not operate according to our sense of justice. Fate is not a democracy. The sun does not shine because we behaved well. The storm does not avoid the house of the kind-hearted. Things happen, sometimes cruel, sometimes random, sometimes without explanation. And the man who waits for life to be fair before he finds peace will never know peace at all. Seneca wrote, "A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not." This is not resignation, it is liberation. It is the clarity that comes when you stop demanding that life owe you something, and instead, you focus entirely on how you respond to what life delivers. What does the obsession with fairness look like in everyday life? You're kind to someone, and they hurt you. You work hard and get overlooked. You stay loyal, and they walk away. You do everything right, and things still fall apart. And then the narrative begins. This isn't fair. This isn't how it's supposed to go. I don't deserve this. But here's the Stoics' question. Who said you were promised fairness? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that pain, betrayal, loss, these are not exceptions, but part of the human experience. You were born for hardship, he wrote to himself, not as a curse, but as a reminder of capacity, that life does not owe you ease, but you owe life your strength. When you let go of the expectation of fairness, you stop reacting like a victim. What would it look like to let this go? To quietly, without explanation, begin detaching your self-worth from the approval of others? It doesn't mean becoming arrogant. It doesn't mean dismissing people's feelings. It means shifting your foundation from outward validation to inward virtue, from being liked to being aligned. There is immense power in learning to be misunderstood, to not chase every false narrative about you. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" You stop waiting for the world to validate your suffering and start using it to sharpen your character. Because the truth is, life is not fair, but it is full of opportunities for growth. Every moment of pain, of injustice, of disappointment, each one is a forge, a place where the weak man is broken, or the strong man is refined. This shift is not easy. It requires you to kill the part of yourself that clings to comfort, to dissolve the illusion that things should go your way just because you've been good. It requires you to accept the brutal, beautiful truth. You are not owed anything, and yet, you owe yourself everything. You owe yourself discipline, regardless of reward. You owe yourself integrity, regardless of outcome. You owe yourself peace, even when the world is loud. You owe yourself courage, even when no one sees it. This is the inner life of the Stoic, not one who denies suffering, but one who refuses to be ruled by it. So how do you begin to release this obsession with fairness? Start by noticing when the voice of entitlement speaks, that inner complaint, that low hum of bitterness. Name it. See it for what it is, a belief that peace comes from life treating you well. Then dismantle it. Replace it with a new voice, one forged in discipline and truth. I did not ask for this, but I will face it. This is not what I wanted, but I will not be broken by it. This is difficult, and I was made for difficult things. Let go of the scoreboard. Stop tracking who got what and why. Stop calculating karma. Stop resenting the ease of others and mourning your own hardship as if you were cursed. You are not cursed. You are being carved. The Stoics did not seek fairness. They sought excellence. They did not ask, "Is this fair?" They asked, "Is this mine to face?" And if the answer was yes, they faced it, fully, fearlessly, and without complaint. You are not a victim. You are not a number in a cosmic lottery. You are a soul with agency, with choice, with power. And once you stop asking the world to be fair, you begin becoming someone who is truly free. Because what can the world take from a man who expects nothing and is prepared for anything? Nothing. Let them wrong you. Let the storm come. Let the path twist. You will walk it anyway, not because it is fair, but because it is yours. Part 8. Uncontrolled anger. Reclaiming command of your emotional state. Anger is seductive. It comes with the illusion of power, the rush of self-righteousness, the thrill of feeling momentarily in control. It tells you that you're strong, that you're right, that you're justified. But in truth, uncontrolled anger is nothing more than emotional slavery, a temporary possession of the mind, where reason collapses and impulse takes over. The Stoics understood this danger more clearly than perhaps any other school of thought. Seneca devoted an entire treatise to anger, describing it as a form of temporary insanity. He warned that once it enters the soul, it becomes difficult to reason, to speak with clarity, to act with virtue. It distorts judgment, it weakens self-command, and worst of all, it turns the person who harbors it into the very thing they despise. Let's be honest, anger feels good in the moment. It gives the illusion of control when we feel powerless. It gives us energy when we feel weak. It gives us words when we feel silenced. But afterward, it leaves ashes. It leaves regret, exhaustion, broken relationships, a bitter taste of having handed over your dignity to a moment you couldn't master. So the Stoic does not pretend to be emotionless, but he refuses to be ruled by emotion. Anger may rise, but it does not lead. The Stoic sees it, names it, and then decides what to do with it, rather than letting it decide for him. Ask yourself, how often have you said or done something in anger that you later had to apologize for? How often have you made an impulsive decision, sent a message, raised your voice, or hardened your heart, only to look back and realize you were not speaking from clarity, but from chaos? Uncontrolled anger does not solve problems. It creates new ones. It may silence someone temporarily, but it destroys trust permanently. It may feel like strength, but it is weakness in disguise. To allow people to think what they want and still stay rooted in your truth, that is not weakness. That is strength of the highest order. This shift cannot be forced through external performance. It must be practiced daily, internally, like a meditation. When you feel the urge to impress, pause. Epictetus put it simply: if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. No one can make you angry. They can only trigger something that was already unguarded. The problem is not out there. The battle is within. This is not about suppression. It's about transmutation. The Stoic doesn't bottle anger until it explodes. He faces it head-on, dissects it, traces its root, and then chooses the response that aligns with his principles, not his instincts. So how do you begin to quietly eliminate the grip of uncontrolled anger from your life? First, by awareness. Anger often hides behind other emotions: fear, shame, insecurity, fatigue. Begin noticing its early signs: a tightening in the chest, a quickening of breath, a shift in tone, a rise in mental speed. When you feel these symptoms, don't react. Pause, observe, breathe. Second, by detachment, remind yourself, this person is not the enemy. My loss of self-control is. In any confrontation, the Stoic focuses not on winning the argument, but on maintaining self-mastery. The true victory is not in silencing your opponent, but in refusing to betray your character. Third, by preparing. The Stoic trains daily for adversity. He knows insults will come. He expects betrayal, misinterpretation, disrespect. Marcus Aurelius wrote each morning to remind himself that he would meet people who are arrogant, rude, selfish, but he trained his mind to respond with steadiness, not surprise. This preparation creates resilience. Fourth, by release. Let go of the idea that others must treat you a certain way, that they must agree with you, that they must see the world as you do. Their behavior is theirs, your response is yours, and only one is within your control. And finally, by reflection. After the storm has passed, ask yourself, what was I protecting? What belief did I feel was threatened? What truth did I ignore in order to feed my anger? In this way, anger becomes a teacher, not a tyrant, a signal, not a sentence. The goal is not to become a cold statue, unaffected and emotionless. The goal is to become so grounded in virtue that even when anger arises, it is filtered through wisdom before it becomes action. You can be firm without being furious. You can be passionate without being poisonous. You can defend without destroying. Because the greatest power is not to unleash your rage, it is to master it, to speak with calm in the face of chaos, to choose clarity when the world chooses conflict, to remain steady when everything around you screams for reaction. Let that be your quiet power. Let others explode. Let others posture. Let others demand and blame and burn bridges. You breathe. You best stay rooted. You remain in command, because a man who cannot control his anger will eventually be controlled by it, and a man who masters his emotions is unshakable. Part 9. The fear of failure. Rewriting your relationship with risk and loss. Failure, the very word can send a chill through the soul. It's what we avoid, what we dread, what we sometimes structure our entire lives around not experiencing. But what is failure, really? And why does it have such power over us? To the average person, failure is proof of inadequacy. To the insecure, failure is shame. To the modern world, failure is a brand, a blemish, a strike on your worth. But to the Stoic, failure is none of these things. It is not a curse. It is not an identity. It is not the end. Failure is simply feedback. It is the correction of illusion, the exposure of unpreparedness, the necessary flame that burns away weakness and reveals where strength must be built. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." What is failure but a difficulty that reveals where you are still fragile, untrained, overconfident, or misaligned? Yet so many people fear failure not because they are incapable, but because they are deeply attached to how others perceive them. They do not fear the stumble. They fear being seen stumbling. They don't fear rejection. They fear the judgment that comes with it. This is pride, not wisdom. And it's a prison. The Stoics invite us to look at failure with calm eyes, to see it as a necessary companion of progress, to embrace it not with shame, but with curiosity. When you fear failure, you begin to shape your life around avoidance. You play small. You choose comfort over challenge. You stay quiet when your voice is needed. You hesitate when the moment calls for boldness. And all the while, your soul shrinks, not because you failed, but because you didn't even try. Marcus Aurelius said, "Just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter." Ask yourself, is this action aligned with my values, or am I performing for approval? When you feel rejected or unseen, ask, did I act with integrity, even if no one noticed? And when you feel the temptation to explain yourself for the 100th time, ask, does my peace require their understanding? The Stoics remind us, no one can disgrace you unless you consent. No one can define you unless you forget who you are. The more you seek approval, the more you train your soul to be dependent. Not the outcome, not the applause, not the recognition, not the success, just the effort, just the integrity, just the attempt. So how do we begin to eliminate the fear of failure? Start with reframing. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is the path to success. Every great thinker, warrior, builder, leader, they failed more than they succeeded. What separates them is not perfection, it is persistence. Next, practice humility. A man who is afraid to fail is a man who thinks too highly of himself. He believes that his identity cannot survive a fall. But the Stoic knows, to be humbled is not to be humiliated. It is to be educated. Every failure makes you more real, more resilient, more aware of what you still must become. Then, examine your definitions. What does failure even mean to you? Not achieving your goal, or being rejected, or being misunderstood? Redefine success as inner alignment, not external achievement. Did you try with courage? Did you stay honest? Did you act in accordance with your values? If so, you did not fail. You lived. Also, study your heroes. Read about the men and women you admire. See how many times they lost. See how many times they were told no. How many times they were doubted, betrayed, mocked, ignored. And then see how many times they stood back up. You'll notice a pattern. They were Stoics, even if they didn't know it. Finally, act anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement in spite of it. When fear of failure arises, use it as a signal to lean in, to do the thing, to speak the truth, to start the project, to risk being seen, being misunderstood, being imperfect. Because fear cannot be eliminated by thinking. It is eliminated by action, by exposure, by walking through the very fire that you thought would burn you, and finding out that it refines you instead. You do not need to prove anything to the world. You do not need a perfect record. You just need to show up, consistently, honestly, relentlessly. Let others chase the illusion of flawlessness. You chase growth. Let others protect their image. You strengthen your reality. Let others wait until they feel ready. You begin now. Because the man who fears failure will always be a prisoner of potential. But the man who accepts failure as his teacher, that man will become unstoppable. So fail. Fail with purpose. Fail with grace. Fail forward. And watch how far it takes you. Part 10. Self-doubt. Silencing the voice that says you're not enough. There is a voice inside you. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It appears in moments of stillness, before big decisions, after mistakes, in the silence of your own thoughts. It says, "You're not ready. You're not good enough. Who do you think you are?" This is the voice of self-doubt. And if you're not careful, you'll believe it. You'll let it define you. Shape your choices. Dim your fire. You'll begin to think that this voice is wisdom, when in fact, it is fear disguised as logic. The Stoics knew this enemy well. They faced it in the Senate, on the battlefield, in exile, in solitude. Marcus Aurelius battled it as emperor. Seneca battled it as a philosopher under threat of death. Epictetus battled it as a former slave turned teacher of kings. Self-doubt is not new, but the way you choose to face it can be. The modern world only amplifies the voice of doubt. Algorithms compare your life to 1,000 others. Marketing tells you you're incomplete unless you buy something. Success is measured in numbers, likes, titles, and perfection is the illusion we silently chase, but never reach. But Stoicism cuts through this noise with a single truth. You are enough, right now, to begin. Not because you're flawless, but because you are willing. Not because you're the best, but because you are present. Not because you know everything, but because you're committed to learning. Self-doubt thrives in the absence of action. The longer you sit in your thoughts, the more convincing they become. But once you move, once you act, doubt loses power. Ask yourself, who taught me to doubt myself? Whose voice lives in my head? What evidence do I have that I'm truly incapable? You'll often find that self-doubt is not based on reality. It's inherited. It's absorbed. It's the result of years of comparison, criticism, rejection. But that voice is not you. It is a guest, and it is time to ask it to leave. Epictetus said, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? Not perfection, not applause, but effort."